Gumba Daru, Gumbanini Gianindu, which is good day. It's good to see you in Burragum, which is the traditional language of the community that I grew up on the Darling Downs. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vicky McDonald, and it's my great privilege to be the State Librarian and CEO here at the State Library of Queensland, and also fantastic to be able to welcome you here this evening to the State Library of Queensland for tonight's Game Changers event, the first in our 2019 series. But let me begin by first acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay respects to the ancestors who came before them. The State Library of Queensland is located on Kiralpa Point, which is a traditional meeting, gathering and sharing place for Aboriginal people, and we proudly continue that tradition here today and every day of the year. I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge our speaker for tonight, Cameron Costello, CEO of Quandamooka Yoolooburrabee Aboriginal Corporation, our facilitator, Ray Weeks, Chairman of the CEO Institute, Rabina Xavier, Executive Dean, QUT Business School, Helen Brodie, President of the Queensland Library Foundation, members of the Library Board of Queensland, the Queensland Library Foundation Council, QUT Business School, and the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame Governing Committee. Also, a very special welcome to our generous donors and partners, Pitcher Partners, Channel 7, Morgans, NAB and RACQ. And also very warm welcome to friends and supporters of the State Library of Queensland and the Hall of Fame. So thank you for joining us tonight as we launch Game Changers for Conversation series for 2019. The Game Changers series brings together innovative leaders from business, technology and creative industries to share their experiences and learnings, as well as encouraging us to think bigger and better. Perhaps some of you are here tonight as you've started your own entrepreneurial journeys and you've come along to network and build new connections. Or maybe you've got the first spark of an idea and you're here for a first-hand perspective from someone who's been there before. At State Library, we want to inspire possibilities through knowledge, stories and creativity. I always feel inspired after hearing stories and personal reflections from dedicated Queensland leaders, and I'm sure tonight will leave you feeling motivated and inspired as well. The Game Changers series is an initiative of the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame. It was established in 2009 by the State Library of Queensland, the Queensland Library Foundation and the QUT Business School. The Hall of Fame celebrates, records and retells stories of Queensland's outstanding business leaders and their many contributions to the development of our state. Over the years, we've hosted 23 Game Changers conversations with leaders who've shared their highs, their lows and also their learnings from their time in business. You can watch recordings of these conversations on the State Library website, as well as accessing a range of other business resources both online and on-site. And with your free State Library membership, you can complete business courses and tutorials or develop skills through the online learning platform lynda.com. As custodians of the state's unique memory, here at State Library we know that much like those who've come before us, the Game Changers of today will continue to shape Queensland business history through the years to come. So tonight it's my pleasure to welcome a community and business leader, Cameron Costello. CEO of Quandamooka Yoolooburrabee Aboriginal Corporation, Cameron champions better outcomes for Quandamooka people. But before Cameron comes to the stage, we will hear a reading of a song of hope written by Udjuru Noonuccal in 1964. This piece is a poignant expression of passion and hope and an example of the talent possessed by the Quandamooka people. Thank you to Auntie Sandra Delaney, a Quandamooka woman who has translated this poem from English to Jonday, the traditional Indigenous language from the Quandamooka country. We acknowledge and value the time, careful thought and wisdom involved to capture the language and cultural context in the capture of the language and cultural context of the translation while honouring the poetic beauty of Udjuru Noonuccal. Could you please welcome the awarded poet and spoken word artist and proud Quandamooka man, Sachin Parkin Owens, to recite a song of hope in English and in Jundai. So please welcome Sachin.
Hi everybody, how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody's good? So my name is Sachin Parker Nowens. I'm an African-American Aboriginal man, and my dad's family resides in Tampa, Florida, and my Indigenous heritage comes from Minjarrabaa, Quandamooka country, and I'm a Ngunnawal Ngugi man. And my mother is Delvin Cockatoo Collins, my grandmother Evelyn Delaney, and my great-grandmother Bethel Delaney. And I'm here to recite a poem for you guys, written by Udjuri Ngunnawal and the translation done by Auntie Sandra Delaney. And I'd like to acknowledge that none of these words are mine. I'm just the messenger for these words. And I would like to thank everybody for allowing me to be in your presence and speak these words, which have been taken away from not only my people, but many people across Australia for centuries. Look up, my people. The dawn is breaking. The new world is waking to a bright new day, where none defame us, no restriction tame us, nor colour shame us, nor sneer dismay. Now brood no more on the years behind you. The hope assigned you shall the past replace, when a juster justice, grown wise and stronger, points to the bone no longer at a darker race. So long we waited, bound and frustrated, till hate be hated and caste disposed. Now light shall guide us, no gold denied us, and all doors open that long were closed. See plain the promise, dark freedom lover, night's nearly over, and though long the climb, new rights will greet us, new mateships meet us, and joy complete us in our new dream time. To our father's father, the pain, the sorrow, to our children's children, the glad tomorrow. Ngariba, Gorijin Quandamooka Biri, Gayenga, Garabora, Yaganmanya, Bajongja, Malyabanya, Bigiju, Baljarang, Dagai Balwalai, Gandai Jandai Warang, Gali Jandai Ganjal, Wala Wangai, Baro Wangayala, Ga Walangu, Gindagu Gaba, Gawanga, Ginda, Garangu, Maramba, Ginda, Garangi, Nubu Gabu, Balga, Wanyam Billy, Maramba, Wirambu, Gana Dada, Gabiya, Juraben, Balga, Gorijingu, Angali, Galun, Gagalun, Gabale, Gali, Wali, Walagai, Garang Dagai, Galgari, Nambai Bambara, Balgari, Guru Balgara, Jara Maramba, Jara Wali, Bigi, Gayenga, Jurijin, Maramba, Gabora Balka, Baramba Milandu, Maramba Balgawa, Panjijin, Gali Dandiri, Gali Yalbora, Yagabali, Ga Willangu, Bing Najang, Gunning, Ngali Yagu, Namu, Ganjan Dabu, Maramba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sachin. That was very beautiful to hear language here this evening, and also thank you to Auntie Sandra for the translation of Udjuri Ngunnawal's poem. 2019 is the International Year of Indigenous Languages, and it provides us here at State Library an opportunity to profile the significant work that we've led over the last decade to document, preserve and make accessible traditional languages of Queensland. And it's important that they're not lost forever, and so it was so appropriate to have the reading here this evening. You can discover a new Indigenous language, a new Indigenous word every week on State Library's website, blog or social media. And later in the year we'll have 2 exhibitions that celebrate our traditional languages of Queensland. But now to tonight's conversation. State Library is a respected cultural institution and we provide a safe and welcoming space for everybody. Speakers at our events hold a wide range of views and come from diverse backgrounds. I acknowledge that not everyone here tonight will agree with what is said, but I encourage everyone to listen respectfully and save their answers to the question and answer session that will be at the end of Ray and Cameron's conversation. And Ray and Cameron will attempt to address as many questions as they possibly can in the time that we have. So could you please join me in firstly welcoming Ray Weeks to the stage, and Ray will introduce Cameron for this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. I think you'd agree that there was just no better way to begin our event tonight than to hear Sashim recite Oodgeroo Noonuckal's poem, a song of hope, and also Auntie Sandra Delaney's Jandai language translation of the poem. It was wonderful. And as Sashim said, that the poem's final line speaks of a glad tomorrow. And this sentiment is the perfect segue for tonight's guest. Cameron Costello is a Quandamooka man from Moreton Bay off the coast of Queensland. As you well know, he is CEO of the Quandamooka Yoolooburrabee Aboriginal Corporation, or QYAC for short. In his role as CEO, he is entrusted to guide and empower the people and land he represents following the native title determination in 2011. We'll explore with Cameron tonight how the QYAC is unlocking the Quandamooka people's ancient connections with the Brisbane River and Moreton Bay through a number of strategic partnerships. And we'll cover some of those tonight. That include the Howard Smith Wharves, the Queensland Wharf Development, the cruise ship terminal, and others that will highlight the Bay's cultural and environmental values. Now, in doing this, we'll better understand how Cameron and the QYAC team are celebrating local Aboriginal culture, country and people, and protecting the Quandamooka people's Jandai language. Now, a game changer, and I'll ask Cameron this question too, a game changer is one who approaches business in a way that disrupts the status quo, challenges the norms, and creates a new way of doing things. As a natural entrepreneur and innovator, Cameron has led QYAC on the journey from sand mining on Stradbroke Island as the main source of income to a suite of ventures centred on land and sea management, ecotourism, food production, cultural awareness, and education and training. Before I introduce Cameron, can I just say, in support of Vicky tonight, that this Game Changers conversation tonight is where you have the right, we all have the right to express diverse views, and those diverse views will be fully supported. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, as Vicky said, after our conversation. Anyone can, of course, ask a question that reflects the concerns that you may have. But in doing so, can I just please ask you to respect others' points of view? So thank you for that, and could you now please welcome Cameron Costello. Cameron, let me start by just following on from that marvellous poem, the Oodgeroo Noonuccal poem. And it's a song of hope, and we just heard Sashim recite. And he ends with that line, as I mentioned, to our children's children, a glad tomorrow. So just take us through, for you, the optimism that comes out of that, and the optimism for you personally and as a CEO.
Sure. Thanks very much for inviting me to be here, and I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this country that we're on, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge my elders in the room as well, and thank Sashim and Auntie Sandra Delaney for her translation as well. It's a real honour to be here. And I think Auntie Oodgeroo's words pretty much lay the foundation for what we're about, and that's about recognising the struggle of our ancestors, but it is about hope, and it's about the children, our children's children, and putting an environment and our foundations for our children's children. And for me, I'm the eternal optimist. So for me, optimism is part of my identity, and I believe in a bright future for our children. I believe in the Quandamooka people, and I believe in the diverse views of the Quandamooka people. And I believe that we're going to create a great foundation moving forward for our children's children. So optimism and song of hope, we've got those words in our boardroom. Those words, those final words from the poem are in the boardroom of QYAC, and that's what we look to refer to, and it's staring us in the face every time we meet.
So how does that feed into your leadership as a CEO? How does it feed into the way you operate as a CEO?
Yeah, well, I think it is about planning for those younger people coming up. So we're setting, putting in the foundations and the structures of businesses, and whether it's cultural practice or whether it's a new venture, how is that going to be set up so it's sustainable, and that we're training up our young people to be those leaders coming through. So that's at the forefront of the community's mind. We've got a number of organisations in the community, and QYAC has been going since 2011, but we've had very strong community organisations before that time, and they have had the same ethos about how do we create the environment and set that up, and so that's sustainable, and how do we bring our young people through, our children's children, how are we planning for them, and how are we making sure that they're going to be taken care of and in the future.
So what else excites you about the role?
Look, nothing is the same every day. I can tell you, it's it's such a broad scope, and so with native title determination in 2011, there's a whole range of different things. So, overnight, we didn't even have an office. We're jointly managing a national park. We're looking at running campgrounds. We've got cultural heritage obligations. So, and then we're looking at economic development as well. So, from dealing with different levels of government to working with community, there's never one day that's the same. And I guess what inspires me is how beautiful the community comes along and is taking on the challenges that are there in front of them, and they believe in each other, and we inspire each other. We're not, we've got such a broad spectrum of views. We are a society. We're a society like any other society that has different spectrums of views. There's people that would vote Labor, vote Liberal, vote One Nation, and so that's the beauty of being a society, is that we have these diverse views, and that means quite often the outcomes are generated through that process. And so I'm always excited about it, because I think we're a very exciting First Nation, and we've got such a broad, diverse range of views, and such a lot of talented people coming out of and being able to produce, whether it's art or, for me, I think whether people agree or disagree with native title, what I have seen and witnessed is that it's almost like there's a Quandamooka Renaissance period occurring. There is revitalisation of art and language and new businesses and political discourse. It's it's just this burst of cultural activity, and whether it's, so to me that's really exciting, and whether it's competing interests, then it's demonstrating that as a society we're continuing and we are driving forward like we should be.
But you're connecting people with the bay, with the river, through these commercial partnerships, aren't you? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what's really interesting is that Quandamooka people, probably around a third, I think, of our people live on Minjerribah. There's a third that live on the rest of Quandamooka country, and then a third off. And so part of it is we are situated on the doorstep of a capital city. There's a large non-Indigenous population living in native title reality, and how we work with the broader community and understanding that we are actually on the doorstep of a capital city and connecting people to the bay is something that we have to, it's a challenge, but it's also exciting. And so one of the opportunities for us moving away from transitioning from sand mining is eco-cultural tourism. And it's very clear to us from the, it's a reality with the population and the growth and tourism booming, is that we are looking at how we connect people to the bay, and that's through a whole range of innovative partnerships, but looking at innovative infrastructure projects to deal with that.
We'll come back to some of these in a minute. a game changer is one who approaches business in a way that disrupts the status quo, challenges the norms, as I was saying before, creates a new way of doing things. Do you see yourself as a game changer?
I think, yeah, I do, but I think native title is a game changer. So, and I think whether it's native title or it's other First Nations rights being recognised is a game changer in Australia. So the Mabo decision was a game changer in Australia. So we, by our very nature and being, we are game changers, and we're having to go out and be innovative. Joint management is an innovative situation for us that we're working with state government. New businesses, looking at partnering with traditional knowledge with other commercial interests is a very challenging, innovative space. And so for us, yeah, definitely I'm innovative by nature, and that's quite challenging for my board sometimes. But things like like Quandamooka Festival, something that I had to convince the board to do, and they've allowed me to do that, and we're in our 5th year, and those are sort of exciting, innovative things. And
so how do you best structure the business partnerships to ensure that the connection and the caring for country is fully supported, and there are no unacceptable trade-offs for your country, your culture, your people? So
I report to a board. So there's a director's position for each of the 12 families who are recognised as the families for the Quandamooka native title claim. The board has a strategic plan that was endorsed by the members, and so I am reporting to them on and driving that strategic plan. So structuring businesses has to meet specific requirements that our community expects our board, who are volunteers elected by their families. And so structuring business, we have an investment committee, we have a finance audit and risk committee, we have a land and sea committee, that all are those checks and balances as to, does this business structure meet what is required in terms of protecting culture, and at the same time, how does it partner to get a commercial outcome? And that's the challenge, is that you've got a cultural culture is one of the unique products, but you've also got commercial interests, and so partnerships have to be structured where we can have those checks and balances.
Some interesting tensions come out of that.
Very interesting tensions, and sometimes it's difficult conversations with commercial partners about, profit is not all of it at the end of the day, when we've got environmental concerns and we've got cultural authenticity as well. And so cultural heritage surveys on, take for example our campgrounds. Our first business venture was with Indigenous Business Australia, partnering about campgrounds, and so we did cultural heritage surveys on the campgrounds to basically manage around our cultural heritage sites, and that's really important, and it's expected by our community, and our community watches us very closely, which they, keeps us on our toes, and we have to do that from a community perspective, and educating our partners is key to that.
Do you see this as a model project for Indigenous entrepreneurs? And just take us through what distinguishes Aboriginal entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
is it a model project?
I think across Australia with native title there are case studies like ours where you are breaking new ground. So joint management of a national park with a state government, that's a new area of how you work together to prioritise around Aboriginal priorities, as well as the usual national parks have been channeling and running this way for so long. And that's it's a challenging and it's game changing. And for us, we have to work with them, educate them, and share knowledge. And so the Aboriginal knowledge that we utilise has to be done in a way that is acceptable to the community. And the challenge for us is that what's acceptable to our Aboriginal community on what the use of knowledge varies in itself. So we're very cognizant that some people don't want us to share any knowledge whatsoever, whereas other people do in a particular way. And so we have to balance that act, and it's challenging, and sometimes it's can be criticised, but that's a challenge we have.
And you referred earlier to elders. Your annual report talks of the vital role that elders play in the success of QYAC. Can you just speak? Is there a particular mentor or elder who had a big impact, significant influence on your leadership?
There's been quite a few elders that have been very supportive and have guided me at various stages throughout my life. So as a young person, obviously my father who is now an elder, was very significant in terms of teaching me how to be a leader, because he was a leader on the sporting field. And then I've always had very strong leaders. My grandmother was a very strong leader. And I've got strong leaders like Auntie Sandra as well, Auntie Evie Parkin, so Shashim's mum. Thank you, Shashim, for your great recital of Auntie Udjaru's poem. But, its ancestors past too, like Auntie Udjaru's writings, and having, gone through to her, her education camp on the island when I was a young fella, was amazing as well. So they've all got this consistent theme, and that is to be humble and be respectful and be committed. But I think working hard is a big thing, and being and ensuring that you're there for the right reason. And I think that's, for me, has been really critical for my elders.
So they're your core values?
Absolutely. So by my nature, I'm very competitive. I'm very motivated. But I remain humble and respectful, and that's been drilled into me. And so even with people with different views, I remain very respectful of those views, and try and look at that and see how we can work together. And sometimes I don't, but I respect people's views, and that's some of my core values is about doing that.
So what do you look for in the people that work for you? What values, what behaviours do they have to demonstrate for you to be interested in them coming in? Yeah,
it's interesting because I'm not your usual boss. So I look for very self-motivated people. I don't like confrontation a lot. So I really look for people that are keen to work, are motivated. It depends what we need for our organisation. So it might be innovation, or it might be a stickler for the rules to make sure that we're doing this. But really, it's about people who buy into the vision of progressing the rights for Quandamooka people. That's, for me, is a critical, that's the foundation. So it's about buying into the vision of the corporation and where we're heading, what our members want. That's critical for me. And you can teach people a lot of things, but sometimes it's really hard to teach motivation and to teach people who are, you can't teach that motivation, I think, and desire and passion. Passion is a key thing that we need.
The energy and the passion, yeah. Now look, you've got some big ideas, and you mentioned some of these before, about operating in Queensland's food industry. Let's just cover some of these. Tell us a little more about bush tucker, medicinal foods, seafood processing, a new honey industry, pop-up cafes, four-wheel drive food vans. It covers the full gamut. And also you've now got this partnership with Star Entertainment Group on the sourcing of your sugar bag honey from QYAC, the Minjerribah business on North Straddie. So take us through some of that.
Yeah, well, I think we go back and say there's been a lot of community plans over the years that have identified, so way back, elders were saying these are the areas we want to invest in. So part of our strategic plan was about progressing where we can, creating an environment for innovation and to unlock some of these opportunities that people want to look at over many years in terms of fisheries, forestry, native foods. So we're trying to create an environment where, whether it's QYAC itself or others, can foster these innovative projects. And so we've been doing some ourselves. So we've partnered with Star around native honey. And so what we're looking at is training up our young people to actually manage the hives, so curate the hives, develop the honey, we look at packaging, but also partnering with Star to have some 50-50 of the honey, because they don't produce much honey, which makes it unique in itself, that it's quite a unique product to have in their high-end restaurants where they'll be promoting the Quandamooka brand, and I guess the quality of the island's natural environment, and then we'll have native honey to have in our own businesses as well. So that's an example where Star are recognising that Quandamooka country it's a beautiful place, the produce is beautiful, and telling the story of young, Indigenous people growing as a community and native hives, etc. I think it's a really beautiful story, and I think that's what we wanted to look. And so we're looking at those other things where we've got native foods, not only from Minjerribah, but from around the country, fusing that into local produce and selling that at festivals, and looking at how we partner with Star in chefs and stuff like that as
So
well.
what scale do you think you can get to with tourism, food production? So what scale are you looking at? What growth?
Yeah, we're actually looking at what's the strategy for that. So we actually have to find out and plan what is the growth. We've been approached by, the Queensland food industry and around and universities as well about let's look at research. Let's look at the types of different food products that we can do. So it's not an overnight quick grab. It's about, and I think with the native honey and looking at other non-native honey, like I said, we've got land and sea committees and investment committees where we've gone, okay, with this, because Minjerribah, I have to say, Quandamooka country is a cultural and wildlife sanctuary. So that's our starting point. So we're very cautious about what we have to do and how we're going to do things. So in terms of honey production, we're engaging with researchers and universities to go, all right, what's the risks around this? Native bees and non-native bees. We want to impact, what's the impact? How do we monitor that? And then what's the production? So I think there's also opportunities to look at research and innovation around hives, the style of hives, etc. So they're just examples of what we're looking to do.
So if you look 5 years out and you look back and you say, we've been successful. What results do you want to see in 5 years when you're looking back and you say, yep, this has worked?
Hopefully in 5 years I'll look back and one of our younger people's taken over my role. That'd be great. And I can go and sit on the beach and swim. But I think for me, I'd love to see a cultural centre built. I'd love to see a knowledge centre. I'd like to see our arts and culture and language thriving. I'd like to see our young people growing into leadership positions and training. That for me. And I'd like to see the advancement of our connection. So for us at the moment, we're negotiating a claim over Moolgumpan, Moreton Island. I'd love to see that return of country from our ancestors' country to our young people, and to see some of our elders who have been, fighting for that for so long. I'd like to see them sitting over there and being on country. And we've got a mainland claim as well. And for me, getting the rights to land in 5 years' time would be such a great achievement.
Now, look, we've got to cover this. You face some pretty vocal opposition to your development plans on North Straddie. You've had some very personal attacks on you, on your background, your reputation, attempts to undermine your personal credibility. So how do you respond to these personal attacks? And how do you approach opposition to your ideas and your plans?
Look, I think first and foremost, it's understanding that there are differing views, and it's an extremely challenging situation for First Nations people in Australia. And respecting those different views and sometimes we're no different to any other society. Like I was saying before, we've got political factions, across the board, and sometimes politics gets a bit dirty. You know what I mean? Sometimes it does, and sometimes it's just people upset, and I can understand that and I respect that. And I think it's about saying, I think leadership is about saying what's the end game, and it's not about making enemies, it's about how we work together. And, sometimes you just have to have a thick skin as well. And I went through a period of time there when I first got the job was when the government actually changed and Campbell Newman came in, and that was a really challenging time for our organisation. So that was a period of time where we were, we had a state government that didn't really like us, and we had a mining company who didn't like us, and there was businesses who didn't like us, and that was a really challenging period for the Quandamooka people, for me as a CEO and as the board. And I got, there was times when it was dark days, and but now, fighting through that and being challenged, I think it's also part of your personality as a leader. You've got to accept the fact that nothing's going to come easy, and like my elders keep saying, they don't call it the struggle for nothing. And I just look back and I go, compared to what my ancestors had to deal with, and compared to what my grandparents and the great-grandparents had to deal with, it's easy days. So, I can handle it. So it's whether you tolerate it is another thing. But for me, I can handle it. I understand where people are coming from. People are upset. It's game changing is confronting. Change is confronting. and for people and for communities. And so, you know, when we're out there changing the world, sometimes it scares people, or that, you know, power balances shift, all that sort of stuff. And it's just understanding that and being respectful, and I think just keeping focus and moving forward. And if you've got the support of enough people, it will happen.
Resilience.
Yeah.
How important is resilience in your leadership, Ben? We talk about building resilience in leadership. How important is that?
It's absolutely one of the major things that you need. You need to be resilient, but I think that only comes from the support of your board. Like my board is resilient, you know. So for me, I'm just out there doing what, you know. I just go, I need to do what I can do. I'm just part of a picture that there's plenty more people out there making contributions to Quandamooka country as much as I am. So I don't think I'm the man. You know, there's a lot of elders, young people coming through. There's a lot of our elders that have led the pathway, and I'm just following through their struggle. And I've got a responsibility and an obligation. I'm in a very privileged position to be out there leading what is a fantastic organisation, and I'm so proud to be there. And I'm so determined and motivated, as you can tell, to actually do what our elders wanted.
Is there a personal story you can share where you understood your strengths, maybe your resilience, your leadership capacity? Is there one personal story that you can share that gives us that understanding?
I think it was probably during when there was a change of government, and the Newman government had come in and passed legislation to continue mining without our consent, and that was a really challenging time. And it was so hard for community, so hard for our elders, so hard for our board. And the leaders got to show composure, and they have to be positive and an optimist and drive forward and lead by example. And so I was engaging with, you know, I had to come up to Parliament, I had to meet with politicians, I had to, you know, talk to community, and it was a really challenging time. But out of that, and there was times when, you know, for me, I had to really look and consider and look inward as to whether I could keep going. And there was times when I had to go to hospital. And in hospital, when I was in a bad way, I think for me what came out was, even though my body was failing, my mind was just going, there's no way I'm giving up. So I think either I'm stupid, but I just have this, if a challenge comes, I'm going to take it. So if people, and I think that's the thing, if people, you know, I just see it as a challenge, and I will always pursue that hard.
Inner strength.
But I love everybody.
Inner strength, self-belief, self-awareness. Well, these are key features of your leadership, aren't they?
Yeah, I just think, well, I don't know if they're, you know, if they're me. Sometimes I don't really think about it. It's just who I am and what I do. And so, you know, I try and listen, and by no means am I perfect at all. And, you know, there's been times when I've had elders come in and get into me, and I just go, thank you. I will address that, you know. So by no means am I perfect, but I tend to learn by my mistakes, you know, and that for me is critical as well, is not thinking you're the smartest guy in the room. So I usually surround myself with smarter people so that I can bounce my ideas off, and I know that when I go forward making a decision, I've had elders and other intelligent people guiding me. So a lot of my leadership is done through guidance of what the community wants and what elders want and what smart people want.
You know, the best advice I ever got, the best advice was surround yourself with the best people, make your expectations clear, and then constantly demonstrate your trust and confidence in their capacity to deliver.
Absolutely. And I think that's, for me, part of being a leader is instilling confidence in people. And for Aboriginal people, we've been excluded from so much, we've been told we can't do things, and I just believe so strongly in our mob. And I just provide that opportunity. I just provide the opportunity and the platform for them. Half the time they'll do the job, they just need someone to say you can do it. And so for me, my role is to go out there and provide these platforms for people to do whatever they want. you know, and achieve their goals and aspirations.
Any questions from the audience? Because we have microphones, one microphone, 2 microphones here. So please, if you just put your hands up. There's a question here. Thank you.
Cameron, Joe Cleary.
Hi.
Great to hear about the native foods, and I'm sure they're all superfoods. What, in your strategy, how are you going to tap into this wonderful resource? Because I'm just starting to see that coming through in hospitality now with the that great opportunity we have for our native superfoods.
Yeah, there is a fantastic opportunity. I think it's one that we're currently exploring now. So I think it's about liaising with elders and community about what those opportunities are, what are those foods out there, and that's something that needs to be explored. And we've had, you know, University of Queensland and other researchers come out and say, oh, this berry is gives you great brains, or, you know, so it's about, I think, for most of the stuff that we're trying to do, the way I try and push it is if there's a strategy, is developing a strategy around it and then developing a program around it. So if there's a strategy around native foods, then there'll be a program, and we look at how does that program structured, what are its elements, and how do we progress that down the track. So it might be, like we've just released a tourism strategy, and that basically was done looking at all our previous tourism strategies but looking at, we're going to get a program that will deliver that, whether it's product development or protecting culture or infrastructure development or strategic partnerships. So how do we frame that? How do we put that in a way that's going to create and sustain a long path? And we need to do that. I think I apply that to kind of any sort of area that we're dealing with. So native foods is one, and whilst it's not for me to decide what foods, it's really for, and it's looking about capacity and sustainability, but that's exciting in itself, right?
Another question?
Yeah, hello Cameron.
Hey, sure.
You know who I am,
Yeah.
eh? Yeah. I'd just like to state I'm a Yuggera, Gurrumpul, Quandamooka elder, all right? And one of the things I'd like to say and mention about the Jandai language, because you've got to go for the correct protocol, right? Because you're on my country now, Yuggera, right? And you respect that?
Yes.
Okay. With my cousin, Kerry Charlton, who has worked on the Jandai language, Yuggera language, for the last 30 years, right? And we have Sandra Delaney down here fraudulently claiming it, right?
Excuse me, look, we've got to get a question.
This is my country. I'm the elder here.
You are asked to respect the conversation.
Yeah.
You're asked to please ask a question.
All I'm going to say is what's happening over on Stradbroke. There's a big rally over there against you, and there are a lot of elders. You're an interpreter of Bull Gunung. That's what you are, right? You keep traumatising the Quandamooka community over there.
Unless
right?
I want a question from you now, that we're not hearing a statement tonight.
Okay,
you
then.
please ask a question.
Right. Yeah? You want to ask a question? Right? You can just wait.
What is your question?
My
Please
question
ask the question.
is, you're saying that you've involved all Quandamooka people in all the businesses over on Stradbroke Island, when we know that that's not true.
I haven't said that.
Yes, you have. It's been in the paper for the last several weeks about you lying about 2.5 Harbour.
What is your question
I've got
now?
no more question,
Thank
right?
you.
I just want to tell you, and Sandra Delaney down there, who's hiding, my cousin is the
Thank you
researcher for Jandai language, not you.
Thank you very much. Now, questions. There's another question? Or a question?
Coming to our country.
That's enough, thanks. Could you speak up and put...
As a CEO, you hear me? Yeah. As a CEO, it seems the business is two-dimensional. You have the cultural and the profitable. It seems like you have two jobs and managing everything. How maybe some people with the cultural could be difficult to lead. and with the profitable, I guess. But anyway, so just as your experience, and maybe you mentioned you were burnout or, yeah, so just I want to know how you handle the two-dimensional here. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's probably, what do they call it, triple bottom lines, and so for us there is the commercial outcome. But like I said, we're cultural and wildlife sanctuary, so cultural protection and environmental protections also. So they're key foundations for our businesses, and how we balance those varies between what we do, and it really is about setting out the plans and goals and your strategies around how you achieve that. And for us, that's where that tension comes in with like businesses, because some businesses or commercial will go, well, we want to make X $1,000, X $100,000 profit, whereas I'm sitting there going, well, we can employ 3 more people. You know what I mean? So, and for us, that's what's the priorities for the Quandamooka people in terms of going, well, it's about employment for our young people coming through,
an economic future.
Yeah. So that's a really critical thing, as well as demonstrating that, actually protecting culture. Do we make X $100,000, or do we do a survey and identify where our cultural heritage sites are and protect those and get them registered?
And what are the trade-offs involved? Another question? Thank you.
Hello, Kimberly Swords from Department of Housing and Public Works, but also a caretaker of a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of your island for a temporary period of time. Just very proud as an Australian to have the experience of seeing native title emerge as a thing, and to see communities achieving that. What advice would you give to other communities as they make the transition, if you like, from struggling together for native title to working out what to do with the native title after they've got it?
Yeah, I think hindsight's a beautiful thing, and I think any community that's sort of leading into the native title path should be looking at strategising and looking at the strategy before they actually get there. So working out now, people can see what some of the models are, and working out what's going to happen when we get it is they should start years out, because most native title claims take years to negotiate, and in that time there needs to, I really think there's an impetus on government to work and support Aboriginal communities, because not necessarily going to have a resource base as you go into that. I believe there's an obligation for the government to work with those relevant First Nation societies to say, what is life going to look once you get native title, and how are you going to set up, and what's going to be the economic development opportunities, and how do you do cultural heritage, all that sort of stuff. There needs to be that support in place.
Helen, you got a question?
Thank you. We heard about, you became the leader, I think about 2011 or something like that.
Yeah, it was around that time. I was actually became on the board of QYAC around that time.
I'm interested to know your leadership journey. Like, what is your background? Because I didn't get that in the CV or in the introduction. So I'm really interested to know what were the journey to get you to become the CEO.
Yeah, so there's probably, and it's an interesting journey, because I went to university, through high school I went and always had mentors saying, you can go places, there was an expectation from family that you're going to get your education, you're going to go on and do things. And so I think my first was teaching. I got into teaching at Griffith University, went in for a year and went, this isn't my gig. And I was looking at the guys doing leisure management, which is like tourism and sport, and I went, yeah, that's my gig. And that's where I learned to surf. And so that for me was, that was at Griffith University. And then I came out of there and did like a junior development office for touch football, set up the junior touch for Brisbane Metro Touch, which is now the largest junior touch comp in Queensland, one of the largest in Australia. Then I went and worked for Sport and Rec Queensland, and basically then worked within government. I worked for Brisbane City Council as Indigenous Sport and Rec Program Officer, did Queensland Indigenous Sport Recognition Night, the Black Diamonds Young Persons Program for Sport, Recreation, Culture, the Arts at Brisbane City Council, which is still going as well. And then while I was there, the Senior Indigenous Policy Officer was a Quandamooka person by the name of Leanne Enoch. And she actually went off and I for a bit, and then I was the acting Senior Indigenous Policy Officer, and it was there that I was leading that policy development and realised that with Indigenous issues a legal background was needed. So then I went overseas for a year and then came back and studied law at UQ, graduated from there, worked at Clayton Utz Lawyers, and then went, this ain't my gig, had a baby to deal with, and then I went and worked for Arts Queensland, which was totally amazing, and managed the Back Indigenous Arts program, and that was developing the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair in far north Queensland and working with remote communities up there about arts, and so that was another sort of program, and that's still going, and QYAC's in its 10th year this year. Everyone should go and buy some art. So that for me is, that's my leadership journey, and then from that, at that time, I was also, native title was well in play, and I was elected by my family to be a rep on the Land Council, did some projects there, and so that's when my leadership journey within Quandamooka was about being an actual representative on a Land Council, and then being a representative on as our native title negotiation team. Went through that till 2011, then was on the board, was a chair for a while, and then stepped down and went through an extensive interview process. None of my family were on the panel, and I was elected in this role here. So that's been my journey.
Let's talk about, just for a moment, I just want to cover global developments with QYAC. So out of just the global developments that you're looking for, could your success be marketed internationally to attract tourists, for instance, to Stradbroke Island? How are you looking globally?
Certainly. I think the vision for Quandamooka is a global eco-cultural tourism destination based on culture and sustainability. And that's why we're progressing World Heritage listing for the Bay, because we need to make sure there's a South East Queensland regional plan that's saying there's going to be a large number of people moving to South East Queensland, and they're all going to be wanting to access the Bay. We need to look at what's the capacity of the Bay for tourism. We're going to have Queen's Wharf bringing people to Brisbane that want to come and experience the Bay. So there is global stuff coming.
International shipping too.
But I think for us, one of the big things is that we've just entered into a partnership with the University of Queensland, and that's going to be around international students coming to the island and having that. So there is a global. It's such a small world now, and even with technology, it's so easy for someone internationally to access what we're doing.
There's a lot of people in the audience tonight, emerging business people, entrepreneurs, innovators. So can you give them some parting advice?
I just think you have to be committed and motivated and believe in what you're doing, and nothing game-changing will come easy to you, and that's but the rewards are life-changing and something that you'll look back on and go, that's been pretty amazing.
Please thank Cameron Costello.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. I'm Rubina Xavier. I'm the Executive Dean of the QUT Business School, and it shows what a broad church we are because we've got an alum of Griffith and UQ. We're very welcome that you've been here to this event tonight. And obviously, Cameron, your optimism is contagious, and that's a very important message for us as well. You've given us an important insight tonight into the opportunities and challenges that you work with every day, and I'm sure we'll watch with interest the ongoing development, including those leadership positions for the group following behind you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Cameron Costello. For those of you who'd like to revisit the conversation tonight or share it with friends or colleagues, the webcast and transcript will be available on the State Library and Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame websites within the week. A special thanks, as always, to Ray Weeks for his valuable contribution as facilitator for the Game Changers and a very strong supporter of the QT Business Schools. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next Game Changers conversation will be on Tuesday, the 18th of June, with Dr. Kirsten Ferguson, and tickets for this event are now available online via the State Library website. As always, this is a free event. On behalf of the Governing Committee and the founding partners, I'd like again to thank the sponsors of the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame, the principal sponsor, Pitcher Partners, our television sponsor, Channel 7, and the major sponsors, Morgans, NAB and RACQ. Please join me in thanking them again. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us tonight. And we hope that you can join us outside on the Queensland Terrace for refreshments, supported by our generous sponsors, Clovelly Estate and Newstead Brewing Company. Thank you.